What is going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here with Kevil once again and our Pittsburgh Steelers professional Mike Beck. Mike's got his sling on, I believe. Show the arm off.
I'll angle that down. That's what happens when you play football for a dozen years. You destroy your body. But glad to be back.
We have Mike here on for a specific reason, because we are talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers today. As the title reads, Antonio Brown trade me rumors. He did tweet out in a response to a tweet from, I don't know if it was someone he knew, a fan, or some random troll on Twitter. Basically, they said, you have all these stats because of Big Ben and because you're on the Steelers, not because you're actually a great wide receiver. And Antonio Brown responded by saying, then trade me. So everybody was freaking out. Does Antonio Brown actually want to be traded? All the news about Le'Veon Bell, and he's holding out and he's nowhere to be seen for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So there is a lot of drama in the Steelers organization right now. So we're kind of going to sort that out, just discuss it. You guys can leave your comments in the live comment section. Let us know what you guys think. Do you think that the Steelers are going to trade Antonio Brown? Do you think Brown is totally overreacting? Do you think this is sort of like the end of this era of the Pittsburgh Steelers? Do you think Mike Tomlin's job is in trouble? Whatever you think, put it in the comment section. We'll definitely interact with you when we get a chance. So guys, let's start off with Mike, because you are the Steelers fan. What do you think is going on with the Steelers right now, and how are you reacting to this?
All right, as someone who's followed this team for majority of my life, it's kind of frustrating for what's going. Well, it's frustrating for what's going on, but I think in some instances there's a lot of smoke, and in other instances there's fire. So I would want to clear up that Antonio Brown, the guy who's tweeting at. The guy that first message, he used to run the PR for the Steelers for I believe 7 years. He just left this past year. So he was involved with the team. He knows Antonio Brown. They would be on the sidelines together. So that was someone he would have interacted with. And then Antonio Brown's agent later today, because he missed practice today as well. That was apparently an excused absence, according to his agent. Mike Tomlin didn't want to comment on that. But on the other side here, there's another report today that NFL insiders from across the league are saying that Tomlin has lost respect of the locker room and he can't control his players. Honestly, for a team that is so inconsistent, it's hard for me not to believe that's true. They lose to teams that they should crush. It doesn't make any sense. This has been a problem throughout Tomlin's tenure. They lose to sub 500 teams and they play bad on the road. Those are issues of an unbuttoned team, undisciplined team. So moving forward, how do they get it under control? I don't know if you can. There's so many things going on with this team, especially with Le'Veon Bell. Guys are frustrated with him. They're frustrated with their record. If they don't start winning, it's going to get worse, because this team is used to winning regardless of all the drama. Even last year, they still had pretty much the same things going on, but I believe they started the year off on a 7 or 8 game winning streak, one of the last teams remaining with an undefeated record. And then this year, to tie the Browns and then the dud against Kansas City, especially in the first half, they did come back. But it's interesting. I'm surprised. I'm looking forward to see how the season plays out in the next couple weeks. But moving forward after the Steelers bye week, could be a little time for concern. I think if anyone's on a hot seat right now, Keith Butler, defensive coordinator, because that defensive secondary was horrible. Horrible. I have not seen so many wide receivers running open in a game before in my life.
Have you watched the Patriots defense?
Honestly, on some of Mahomes, it's not good. I agree, but Mahomes especially on Kelsey's first touchdown that game, Tyreek Hill ran a wheel on the other side of the field, wide open. Hopkins, I believe, was running an under, wide open. He could have had his pick of receivers that would have scored a touchdown. It was so incredibly bad.
I don't disagree with you. Myself and Dylan both live stream. We were on the live stream for the game, so we were reacting to it live. And I was basically saying, what are they what type of defense is it? What are they doing? But anyways, Keith Butler's on the hot seat. Is Mike Tomlin on the hot seat?
I would say he would have to be. Clearly, this is one of the most talented rosters in the NFL. You can't even argue against it. Le'Veon Bell is a guy people will say is arguably the best running back. AB, arguably the best receiver. Big Ben is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL and one of the all-time guys. One of the best offensive lines in the league that people don't even think about. The rest of the receiving core is good. Like Juju has Pro Bowl potential. James Conner clearly is a guy that can step in and produce. Their defensive line is decent. TJ Watt is streaky. Sometimes he's an unbelievable pass rusher. Other times they put him in coverage the entire game like they did against Kansas City, making no sense to me. But then their secondary, when Joe Hayden's hurt, not in the lineup, the communication just completely falls off, and Joe Hayden's hurt so often. So when you look at it, they're healthy. When they're healthy on defense, they're all right, but they're still somehow, when one cog is turning, the other one's not, and their offense isn't producing. So to say Mike Tomlin's not on the hot seat would be a crazy statement, just because this team's had so much talent and they haven't produced in it's been 10 years now with Tomlin. He hasn't had a losing record, but still in the NFL, it is a results-driven league. The only thing is the Pittsburgh Steelers don't fire coaches. They've had 3 in the last, I think it's 60 years or so, like a little bit less than that, but still 3 head coaches. So that is not a lot of turnaround. They stick with their guys, but this locker room's got to get together. I think it kind of starts next year when Le'Veon Bell moves on, because there's no way he's re-signing, if we're being honest. So that's kind of one asset of the team that could move away, and the team could kind of grow together a little bit without talking about the drama all offseason long and into the regular season. So is Tomlin on the hottest seat in the NFL right now? No. Is he about 16th out of 32 coaches, right dead center on that scale? Yes. If they don't win, say the next 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row, then the story kind of changes.
What if they lose on Monday night to the Bucs?
It's tough. Honestly, at the beginning of the year, I was picking the Bucs to be one of the worst teams in the league, but then they've come out and beaten my team that I predicted would win the NFC and the Eagles, and they beat the team that I predicted would win the Super Bowl and the Saints. So, like, this is a team I can't even explain the Bucs.
But
like,
I'm saying,
losing to them,
just throw out the Bucs. Forget about what the Bucs are in your mind.
Okay.
Just think about what the Steelers would be at this point. They would be 0-2-1.
Yeah, essentially 0-3. So at that point, if they were to lose 45-0, just completely blown out, then it would be bad. Then there'd be smoke and like alarms going off in Pittsburgh. If they were to lose, say, a close game that's kind of low scoring, then say arguments like 17-14, I think everyone's job will be fine for another week. If they were to lose a game 31-45, I think they'd be looking at Keith Butler and saying, well, I'm sorry, we're 3 games in, you're out. Clearly you cannot game plan, because the last 2 home games, they've allowed 45 points to the Jaguars, the Bortles leg Jaguars, and then Pat Mahomes' second game, 6 touchdown passes, another 42 points. Like, come on, it's been extremely bad in the last 2 home games.
Okay, so let's get to Kev. Kevil, Mike knows that I've never really been a huge Tomlin guy. But if there's anyone that is not a big Tomlin guy, it's you. So why don't you give your opinion on the whole situation and Tomlin and Antonio Brown?
Well, I guess, me being a little bit older than everyone else here, I remember, Lynn Swann, there's Franco Harris, there's Terry Bradshaw, Joe Green, Jerome Bettis, Hines Ward. This team used to be this mean, nasty, ferocious, you just don't screw with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You may not like the Pittsburgh Steelers, but at the very least, you respect the Pittsburgh Steelers. This team now is more concerned about their brand, their social media, if they're coming to the stadium in a bike, who stole my bike, how much money am I making, are you going to trade me? This never happened under the watches of Chuck Noll, and this stuff never happened under Bill Cowler. But under Mike Tomlin, it feels like this is a zoo, and I don't know if this is just part of the new generation of players. But I look at teams like the Rams. They all got paid, and they seem to be acting pretty professional. I just feel like I feel like the problem with Mike Tomlin from the beginning, he was too young for the job. because he came in. He was the youngest coach in NFL history at the time, or close to it. He was at least one of the youngest. And he came in as he was like one of the guys. Hey, I'm just your bud. And they never, like Bill Cowler, Chuck Noll, any of the predecessors before that, they weren't the buddies of the team. So I don't think that the players truly respect Mike Tomlin in that coaching position. And this team was so much different with Dick LeBeau. Like, I feel like Dick LeBeau was like a glue with this team in a lot of ways. And he's probably one of the best defensive coordinators of all time. It feels like Mike Tomlin is one of the boys. And I think in terms of coaching, I mean, all I need to do is just point to Mitch here. He's been outcoached miserably against Mr. Belichick. And you could argue that the Pittsburgh Steelers generally have had more talent than the New England Patriots. But I feel like when it's a big game or when it's like the lights are on, I just can't trust Mike Tomlin. Like, I want to like Mike Tomlin seems like a very decent human being, but I just don't think he's a good NFL coach. And I don't think he's respected in this locker room. But I think that it goes beyond that. I don't think that this team respects each other. Because even the decade before, you look at the Indianapolis Colts, there were players that were, it said, not willing to get paid, willing to get a pay cut to make sure that you could bring in someone in to improve another part so you can win your championship. I'm not hearing that from the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is an organization that's been team first for a long time. It just is so bizarre to me. And I mean, I don't know who to blame about the drafting of the. I mean, it's interesting. Like, you talked so much about the talent on the offense. You mentioned one defensive player, and that was T.J. Watt. And you kind of mentioned Joe Hayden. But the defense has been like, I don't know. The way that they've been drafted in defense has just been very confusing to me.
Terrible.
I mean, like, and they haven't even reached out for a free agent. Like, why are you not contacting Ndamukong Suh? Just for the hell of it. Say hello. How are you? Like, it just doesn't feel like a team-first atmosphere in Pittsburgh. And I think a lot of that goes to Tomlin, but I think a lot of this has to go to the players, too.
See, like, when you talk about drafting there, especially, I believe it's the last 6 years in a row have been defensive players. I don't have it loaded up, but if I can do it off my head, Jarvis Jones, complete bust. He's already out of the NFL. Artie Burns, it won't be in order. Artie Burns, he has been a liability on defense. You know, like, I think is 3 years now in the league. Every single year he's been a guy that gets torched, especially on double moves. Bud Dupree, they gave him his fifth-year option, but after that, I could see him being out of the NFL just like Jarvis Jones. That's another guy I could see on the way out. Terrell Edmonds, I thought he played okay in Cleveland. I thought he played absolutely terribly against Kansas City. That's a guy that scares me. I'm not confident in what he can do at all. TJ Watt, he had a good year last year. He had an amazing first week. So that's one player where it's like, okay. Then there's Ryan Shazier.
The thing I will separate with TJ Watt is that TJ Watt, you know, he's going to give you 100%.
That's exactly it. He's an effort player. He goes 110% on every play.
And I'll throw out a couple names that I like on the Steelers defense. I'll give them a little respect here. I like Cam Hayward. I like Stephon Tuitt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those players are good.
They're good defensive linemen. Sometimes they'll get tired and not pull a pass rush, and when they only send 3 or 4, they can't get to a quarterback. That's the only thing against them. Cam Hayward led the team with sacks, I believe, with 10 or 12 last year. He's a good defensive end. I like him a lot. But when you move away from that, that's when it kind of starts falling apart.
No, yeah. The thing with the Steelers roster, I was going to get to a different point, but I'll wait for that. So the thing with the Steelers roster that frustrates me is they've had the same issues for years. They haven't, since Troy Polamalu, they haven't had a safety. Since, the linebackers back in like the mid 2000s, they haven't had middle linebacker play that's been any good. Ryan Shazier was there. Then he got injured. Now they have the same problem. Like, they had a couple of years or a year or so with Ryan Shazier. Edge rush, really, since James Harrison's prime, they haven't had a great edge rush. They've had the same issues. Pass defense has been an issue. And now all of a sudden, like, run defense is sort of an issue as well. So I just feel like they have the same issues, and they've never ever had corners. Like,
yeah. Well, when they went on their Super Bowl
Taylor has
runs,
been their best corner.
Yeah, and he had a couple years where he was a lockdown guy. But do you remember that one year we broke down the because he put the number one receiver on an island, and he allowed like 2,000 receiving yards in one season. It was so bad. So
that's the problem with the Steelers is they've had all this talent on offense and everything, and the defense has had the same issues, and the Patriots have attacked the same issues, or the Jaguars have attacked the same issues, or whoever ends up beating them. It's just the same thing over and over and over again. So I was going to get to the point of Mike Tomlin, but also I want to bring up names or a name that hasn't been brought up. The Rooneys. Okay. They've been the owners since the inception of the Steelers. So, and they're looked at as probably the best owners in the NFL. I mean, probably Robert Kraft would be in the conversation as well. But the Rooneys, since they've been around, they've been the most consistent winning franchise in the NFL. So my question is, why haven't they stepped in and done anything about this situation? Why all of a sudden has this happened? Like, I don't understand. Has there been a change with the way that they run the organization? Like, do you have any insight on that, Mike? I'm not sure because I don't follow the team like you do.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the Rooneys kind of take more of a hands-off approach, I would say. Where their work is, I'd say, more done is for the NFL players in meetings with other owners. Kevin Colbert has been their GM/player personnel guy since, I believe, either 99 or 2000. So, like, the guy that's been in charge of...
And how has that not changed given their draft history and their free agency? I have not seen a team as a contender this long that refuses to sign free agents.
Oh, that's been their philosophy since free agency started, is developing their own players. Give them credit. As crappy as they have been in the first round of drafting players, rounds 2 to 7, they find gems consistently. That's where they find their best players, which is... like, it's hard to fathom. Some of their best players in this roster are the first-round picks, though. Like the offensive lineman, Marquise Pouncey, David DeCastro, both first-round picks. But you got to remember what side of 2010 has that happened on now. So they're getting older. So they haven't hit on a first-round pick since I wouldn't even want to talk about Shazier in this category just because we don't know if he's ever going to play again. And he's only been there for like 5 years. So it's crazy. When you look back at it, Ben Roethlisberger, home run pick, clearly franchise quarterback. Santonio Holmes, another first-round pick. A great wide receiver for the Steelers. Troy Polamalu, another guy drafted. One of the best, if not the best, safety of all time. I know some people will argue that, but I believe he's one of the best.
One of the best.
There's so many guys. James Harrison, I believe, undrafted. Lamar Woodley, that was a first or second.
They've
I believe
been
second-round pick.
amazing at picking receivers.
Yes, that's the thing. Juju Smith-Schuster. I think James Washington's going to be just as good as Juju. Like, from what I've seen from him, he comes down with contested passes and he runs crisp, fast routes. So I like him a lot too. I feel like that's another good pick.
Emmanuel Sanders, Santonio Holmes,
Plaxico Burress.
Like,
it goes on and on. There's a lot of talent that comes.
Mike
to the
Wallace.
But yeah, exactly.
So
when they do go after free agents, though, how many have they bombed on? I think Mike Mitchell, like, he was supposed to replace Ryan Clark. That was kind of messy. He didn't have a great Steelers career. His contract runs up, they don't re-sign him. They don't even offer him. They bring in Morgan Burnett this year. What has he done? Like, I haven't heard his name once. He hasn't really done anything. And he was hurt during the preseason, but during the regular season so far, he's been a complete no-show. Other guys that they brought in, Joe Hayden, he's been hurt a lot. That's kind of been plagued him throughout his career, but they're a different defense when he's not on the field. So when it comes to personnel, it's so tricky. Like, I'd almost rather they trade those first-round picks, like, because teams overvalue the first-round pick.
They do.
Why wouldn't the Steelers trade the 2 picks for Khalil Mack and just say, okay, we're going to rescind the tag and Lev Bell because he's not going to play for us till week 10 anyway. We get the best or second best pass rusher in the league. Like, come on now. Like, that should have been the first thing they thought of, because how many times did you miss on first-round picks? Like, so often. Think about your favorite team. Like, if you're watching this, think about your favorite team's last 2 first-round picks. And tell me they're better than Khalil Mack. If you say no, like, if you're the Steelers, it's TJ Watt and Terrell
Name a
Edmonds.
team that had 2 first-round picks that are better than Khalil Mack.
Exactly. That's what it boils down to. Teams are too high on first-round picks. So, like, I think a smart team really trades
Not even
them.
like in the last 2 years, the last 5 years, the last 10, I'll give you the last 30 years. Name 2 first-round picks you've had on your team that's better than
back to back. Because I feel like there's some teams that could be like, oh, we got this guy and this guy. It's okay.
Still, I feel like
Damian
Khalil
Tomlinson
Mack would be Khalil Mack. This is a side conversation. I think is going to go down as a top 20 defensive player. He might go down as he's that good, and he's just getting in his prime right now.
I agree with that. I think he's one of the premier pass rushers right now. Like, I thought he was good before. I think he's already stepped up to a whole nother level in Chicago.
Yeah,
like, because he didn't even do training camp. He didn't even go to training camp. He's one of their best players. It's crazy.
Exactly. Okay, so my point on Mike Tomlin, Kev brought it up. My point on Mike Tomlin's always been that Mike Tomlin, as Kev brought up, he's the rah guy. He's the like, let's go, guys. Like, let's do this. Like, he's a really good dude. He's a leader. He's a great leader. He's a great motivational guy. But players, after a while, see through that sort of coach. Like, it gets old after a while, as the Seahawks are starting to see with Pete Carroll. It's the same type of coach where it's like the same motivational speech, the same thing every year, every week. Guys that have been there for a while, like Big Ben or Antonio Brown or Le'Veon Bell, they're like, okay, we heard this speech like 2 years ago. You know what I mean? It's like it's getting a little bit old. It's the same thing with John Gruden. It's corny. And the thing with Mike Tomlin that I've always felt like has diminished him from being a great coach is the fact that he's not a great game planner or X's and O's guy. Like, he's not like, is he a great defensive coach or offensive coach, or like, what is identity on offense? What is his identity on defense? What does he do that's special? Like, you could clearly see with Sean McVay, his offense is special. You know, Bill Belichick usually is defense, but I don't know if we could say that usually. He's just great all around now. You know, so there's specific coaches in the NFL where it's like, he does this really well. He's really good at scheming this way, and that's why he's a great coach. So, and I just feel like Mike Tomlin, he's never had that identity to him.
Oh, I would totally agree with that. Like, that is a good point. What does he do? Because when Dick LeBeau was the DC, he completely ran the defense. All his OCs, Arians, Haley, and now
they've all been good OCs. Yeah, you can't say they're not good OCs by themselves separately.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like, Haley is abrasive and Ben wanted him out. That's what that boils down to. You want your quarterback to be healthy or happy and last. I feel like he would have retired a little sooner, maybe even this year if they re-signed Haley, because I don't think they got along. That's kind of what that boils down to.
Do you think Todd Haley's laughing right now in Cleveland?
Maybe. He's probably like, there's a whole lot less drama here, and Baker actually respects me. I feel like that's probably something that helps him a lot. But then, like, you look at the guys on the Browns roster in comparison. Jarvis Landry is definitely a team guy. Like, you watch Hard Knocks, he loves his boys. Like, Can you say that for everyone on the Steelers? Hell no. You definitely can't. Like what Kevin was saying with contracts, like, I will take less money. I don't get why more teams don't do that. Like, Brady is loaded. He doesn't need any more money. He's one of like the bottom, like 16
He's like the 16th most paid quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of the reasons why the Pats can afford to bring guys in year after year. It's one of the things that I don't understand about the NFL, especially guys that are like cheap guys relatively.
And I never want the players. I'm always one for the players getting their money. Like, I'm never going to say, don't get your money. Like, you deserve the money, especially if you're great. If you're Antonio Brown, you deserve money.
Yeah.
If you're Le'Veon Bell, you deserve money. It's like,
if you have a $500 million Nike deal. I'm sorry.
But Rob Gronkowski hasn't spent $1.
It's all sponsorship money that he spent, right? Isn't that what he? It's
not like he's like the most highest paid player in the NFL. He's a tight end.
Yeah.
So, I had one more point about Antonio Brown, and I want to know what you think about this, Mike. There's been a common phrase in the NFL, and I might have said this before, but I went on a semi-rant today with the Waterboy Report on his pick show. If you guys go check that out, he's going to release it tonight. I was a guest on his show for the week 3 picks. So basically, I want a mini rant when he discussed the Steelers. And my rant was concerning Antonio Brown. There's been a phrase in the NFL, diva wide receiver. And there's guys like Odell. There's guys like Terrell Owens, Randy Moss, Chad Johnson, Steve Smith, the guys that come to your mind when you talk about diva wide receivers. And for whatever reason, Antonio Brown never gets brought up as a diva, never gets blamed for the antics that he does, never gets blamed for anything he's ever done in his career. He had that Facebook thing on live. He disrespected Mike Tomlin there. He's multiple times on the sideline gotten angry and like just made a scene on the sidelines with Big Ben, his teammates, his coach, his offensive coordinator. He's thrown things on the sideline. Like, he goes out of his way to make a show about himself. And I like Antonio Brown. I have his jersey, but I'm just saying, like, why is it that Odell, who is like hasn't done anything wrong in like, I don't know how long. I don't even know, like, has he ever done anything as bad as the Facebook thing that Antonio Brown did? I don't think so. Like, why is it that Odell gets all this attention and negative publicity for being a diva wide receiver, but Antonio Brown just is like, oh, he's a great guy. Like, he's the stand-up citizen. He's like the story of the late round draft pick that overcame the odds, and he's the hardworking receiver. Why doesn't he get the diva tag? Like, I don't understand this.
It's kind of interesting to bring up. Like, I think in Steelers Twitter, a lot of people have been quick to bash him, especially the people that I follow and like the insiders, the writers of the Post-Gazette in Pittsburgh. Some of the people from their sports networks locally have kind of labeled him more that way, but I can agree with that from a league point of view. Like with Odell, I think it's kind of hard to explain why they figure he's more the diva kind. Maybe because pregame you see him dancing all the time, and like that's like a point of focus before games where the camera guy's always on him dancing. Or like the one thing he did, which really wasn't that bad, was during the bye week on the playoffs, going on a boat cruise with the rest of the wide receivers. I don't know if you remember that. Would that affect the game? I don't think so.
Yeah, but also he wasn't even the veteran receiver there. I understand he's like the star of the team, but like Victor Cruz was there. Like, okay.
So that's probably still not on him. That's probably not even his idea. At that time, he's still on his rookie deal, not getting paid that much, even though he's a first round pick. Another thing is like maybe because he dyed his hair, like the tips of his hair blonde. Like, it's weird, but is that a reason why people think he's a diva? Like, I think it might be the market, because Pittsburgh's been known as this like.
It's also it's New York. It's the publicity. He's the most popular player in the NFL.
To a certain degree, I would agree with that. Like, especially in the market, and like New York, he's going to be the first guy that they go to in interviews. He's the biggest name on that team. The thing, could Saquon take that over one day? I don't know, because he's quiet. He's not a guy that comes out and talks all the time. So
I just don't get like the Antonio Brown. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, what is it about Antonio Brown that allows him to get away with some of the antics?
It is thought provoking, but
I'm going to take this a little further. There's a guy we haven't talked about yet. We have to talk about him, and it's Ben. And you're right. Listen, if you look at the numbers, franchise quarterback, not going to dispute that. However, there have been times that he has thrown his offensive coordinator under the bus. Well, it's not my fault that play was called. You have to ask Todd Haley that's why that play was called. I don't know why they threw that interception. It was the play call from Todd Haley. He never seems to take any responsibility. When it comes to big games, I'm sorry, he's not Big Ben. Ask Mitch again when he plays the Patriots.
I would say not all big games.
Franchise quarterback, he throws a lot of interceptions. He's already got 6 already this year. This is another guy that I feel like he can do no wrong. And there's other quarterbacks. I mean, I'm not comparing. I think Ben is better than Matt Ryan, but like Matt Ryan takes some heat where Ben doesn't at times, right? I think that you can see some of the same criticisms we have of Matt Ryan, Ben has had, especially in bigger games. And I feel like Ben has gotten a lot of people have allowed a lot of stuff for Ben to slide a bit too. So it's not only Antonio that gets the slide. I think Ben is part of that. And I think Ben's approach, I think, is part of the problem. He's the quarterback of the team, which is the face of the franchise. He does these certain things. And I think some of the players feed off of that. I think the way Antonio and Le'Veon are acting is partly because they see Ben do it. And if Ben can do it, why can't I do it? And maybe it's not exactly the same what they're doing, but Ben is a diva. Ben at times is hurt when he is not hurt.
I would agree with that. There's so many times that he's rolling around after a play. Like, you see it all the time. Like, he's clutching at his ankle, rolling around, whatever. He gets up, jogs to the huddles. Oh, he's so tough. It's like, at this point, I've watched this guy since 2004. I know it's BS. Like, come on. Like, he does it almost every game. Like, he wants to add a storyline. It's to some degree, it's funny. The thing is, with the interceptions, like, I just quickly pulled up his stats. He will throw a lot of interceptions in a game. Like, over the course of the season, like last year, he had that 5-pick game against the Jags. You take that game out, he only threw 9 interceptions on the year. That's he will have a horrific game. But then, like, throughout the rest of the year, he'll be pretty consistent. Like, the Browns game, he threw 3 picks and a touchdown. This past week, he didn't throw a single interception. So
if
when
I
you just kind of break it down,
take this in a different direction, I feel like Big Ben's play is not the issue to me, because Big Ben has been since 2007-ish. He's been like a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, like on a consistent basis. He's probably like the 6th or 7th best quarterback in the NFL right now, I would say. I think he's been really good this year. He did have a couple mistakes against the Browns, but that was like in basically a tsunami. So, I mean, I don't know what to say about that, but
it's hard to fault someone.
Yeah, he was really good last year. He was good the year before. Like, I don't think it's really been Big Ben's fault, and I think he's going to have a great year this year, and he had a great game last game. But I don't think it's his play. I think it is more his personality, maybe, if he is to blame in any regard, that it's the way that he leads the team. And I don't know, because I'm not in the locker room, I'm not on the team, but it could be part of the reason. It could be, it's obviously a huge reason why Todd Haley left, and maybe that impacted the rest of the team, and maybe that said to Le'Veon, hey, Ben has a lot of power here. He just got our offensive coordinator kicked off the team. I'm just going to hold out. Doesn't matter. I'm going to get my money anyways. And if I don't, I'm just going to go somewhere else and get my money. Antonio Brown may be thinking the same thing. So maybe there's just the Steelers players. When I talk about the Patriots, no player is bigger than the team or the coach even. With the Steelers, it seems like all their star players are bigger than the franchise itself. I don't know.
No, I agree with that. There's no two ways around it. The way I kind of see this team going forward, though, I think they could struggle this year. The thing is, I don't think the AFC North is good. They should still make the playoffs. I think an AFC North team
last year.
I still think the roster is better than last year, but they still.
I think this division is better than last year.
Oh, okay. I would agree with that, but still, I still don't think it. I think the Browns are better. I think the Bengals are playing above their weight. I think in the coming weeks we'll kind of see them mellow out a little bit. Are they going to continue being hot? I really don't think so, especially with Mixon being hurt. But moving forward, I think the team that wins this division might only need nine wins. So if you win within the division, you'll win. You'll take it home, essentially being a third or fourth seed, which honestly is not good enough for the Steelers team with the talent. But moving forward next year, you're going to get like about $15 million of cap space from losing Le'Veon Bell. A move that probably will happen depending on Joe Hayden's health is him being released because he only has a year left on his deal. I'd free up about another $7 million. Ryan Shazier, his contract is still on the books. They will give him something just knowing how the team operates. So they'll keep him on the roster, like, I don't know, a 1-year, $3 million deal, just so he's still getting paid and just like, hey, we respect what you did for this team. You literally almost lost your ability to walk for us, so we're going to do something for you. they'll give him something, but they're still going to get like $4 or $5 million in that cap space. So they'll sit around, I would say $25-30 million next year, and they can actually spend it. They should be bringing someone in on the defensive side, without a doubt. They should be looking at linebackers. They should be looking at more corners. Like, it should be an overhaul. This team is not good enough on the defensive side of the ball, and it hasn't been for almost, I would say, since 2011. So you need to bring new guys in to breathe fresh air into the roster, and it's got to be quality people. That's something the Steelers relied on for years. If you weren't a quality person, you're out. So Antonio Holmes, remember, he had like a small incident on a plane that got him traded to the Jets for nothing. This was how they worked. But then I guess kind of with Ben, he went through some stuff and they didn't cut him. They didn't trade him. They didn't punish him. So I think that's kind of where everything kind of stemmed from. It's like, oh, you know what? Ben can get away with doing something stupid regardless if he was charged or not. So we're going to just do whatever we want now and know there's not going to be any repercussions.
Also, they don't ever trade.
No, never. Maybe some, like Martavis Bryant, that seems like a smart move if that was a suspension actually comes from that. Like, keep saying that for like, say about the last 2 months I've been talking suspension. That seemed like a good trade for the Steelers. What they do trade, though, is like maybe they've done it a little bit more. Last year was J.J. Wilcox for like, I believe, a 5th-round pick from Tampa. He was basically a special teamer, didn't really do anything. Ryan Switzer, I think that was a 7th. He's looked good for the Steelers this year. I like him. He works hard. He's one of the best kick returners I've seen over my lifetime, because they don't bring in kick returners and they put their star players back there, which is nice. They get AB out of the way. He's not punt returning anymore. Switzer's been a great ad. But that is something I think teams should do more, because, again, we overvalue draft picks. Like, you never know really if there's a home run.
Kevil, name one good drafter in the NFL.
One good drafter?
There isn't any. It's a trick question.
No, I don't agree with that. I think I agree that we value first round picks, but I mean, I don't think that there's, I mean, from 2nd to 6th, you can still find some, like Richard Sherman was a 7th round pick. Russell Wilson, 4th round pick.
Yeah, but you're naming outliers.
Tom Brady was a 7th round pick.
6th, actually, but you're naming outliers here.
But it's still, like, there's still a value in draft.
There is. I'm not saying that, but I just feel like if you're a team like the Steelers or a team in contention, you should want to trade for pieces that can help your team, that are proven players.
The Seahawks have always been a team that has moved back to try to get more draft picks. That hasn't always worked out, but that's been their approach. This year they didn't do that, but Seahawks are one of those teams. The Patriots are another team that always try to move out of the first round to get later picks. And I think that that's more of an effective strategy. I do agree at times we overvalue the first pick, and I think there's a lot of pressure on them to who was it that was talking about that? I heard like as a player, former Flame Eric Nystrom, this hockey, but he was talking about if you're a first round pick, there's a lot of pressure on you to perform at a certain level that you may not be at.
All right, let's get to the chat. Go Skittle is in the chat. He said, AB is great with or without Ben. The Killer B era is ending, and Mike Tomlin should be terminated. Training Solution says, hey.
Just to go off of that, though. Oh, like, just really quick. Like, the thing is, how many receivers have the Steelers let go that are trash, that we thought were the best in the league? Mike Wallace. If we recall back to about 2010,
Emmanuel Sanders is great.
He's an outlier. He was the one guy. He didn't really play a lot in the Steelers because he was buried on that depth chart. He's the one guy that left and did better. But how many guys were on that team that left and got worse? Mike Wallace was considered a top 5 receiver, much like Antonio Brown is now. He leaves to Miami. His numbers nosedive. He kind of came back up a little bit in Minnesota. Baltimore, again, a little better than Philly. He's hurt. So, like, does he ever get back to the same level as when he was on the Steelers? No. Santonio Holmes goes to the Jets, 2 or 3 years, careers over. Plaxico Burress, he had some decent years, but then shot himself in the leg. So that's kind of not really someone worth mentioning. But there's a lot of guys.
I mean, he's a legend in Giants' mind.
Oh, absolutely. But still, there's a lot of guys that come in and leave and aren't sorry, Mitch, that aren't as successful. Ben is a guy that makes you look better. It's like your Brady's and your Mannings. If you play for them, they're going to put the ball in the perfect place. Those are the guys you want throwing you the ball. You don't really want to be catching from Blake Bortles every single week and expect to get a giant deal. Like you put Antonio Brown, say, I don't know, on the Bills, and when they're starting Peterman. So what kind of stats would you expect him over? Do you believe
that Antonio Brown is the best receiver in football?
To a certain degree, yes, and then another sense, no. Like if you put Julio Jones on the Steelers, like his being 6'4", I believe, it's just like an outlier that you can't even. He's also one of the fastest receivers in the league. I think Antonio Brown runs the fastest routes, which gets you open. The thing is, being so small, he's able to do that, and Julio Jones won't be ever able to cut that fast because his center of gravity is that much higher. Antonio Brown's able to work the seam, sidelines, and he knows how to get his toes down better than anyone else. So he can get open easier than any wide receiver. Julio Jones is more of a physical like beast. Like there's no DB is going to bully Julio Jones, you know. So if Antonio Brown is triple covered, there's a difference. Like you could still throw it up to Julio Jones on any situation, and you could expect him to come down with the ball.
Okay.
I don't know. I think any team that has Antonio Brown, I still think he's in at least in your top three.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not questioning that at all. But the thing is, if you're with a terrible quarterback, you're not putting up 100 reception, 1,500-yard, 10 touchdown seasons. That's the only thing I'm saying. Like if he's in Cleveland last year with Deshaun Kaiser and no time for to throw the ball, does he even get 1,000 yards? Like are you just forcing the ball on screens every play? Is he going to be triple covered because the team's so terrible? That's something I think we're going to see with Le'Veon Bell next year. If he ends up the teams with money like the Colts or the Jets, they don't have offensive linemen. Like your numbers are going to fall if you don't get blocked. If you're getting tackled, well, what good is patience if there's no blocking? That's something people don't think about all the time. When you're investing in a running back, you're not investing in your O-line. You got to find the money somewhere else. You got to take it out of your quarterback. You got to take it out of your pass rusher. Those are the three most important positions in football. The guy behind center, the guy's protecting that guy, and the guy that has to get the other team's prize quarterback. That's what changes games. A shutdown corner is great, but if you have 30 seconds to throw the ball, you're not covering someone for that long. A running back is great, but if you're down 20 points and you need to throw the ball down the field, it doesn't mean anything. Like there's so many things that we overvalue. I like from the beginning, I've been a guy that's kind of like, sure, Le'Veon Bell's great. Do I want to reset the market with 15 mil? No, like 12 mil? Sure, that's 5 million more than before when it first started than the next highest paid guy. Once you'll see the Rams when their guys in the rookie deals come up, if they re-sign Sue and Talib and Peters, because they're going to have to get paid shortly. What do you do with Jared Goff? I don't think he's a great quarterback, but how much quarterbacks expect $40 million a year? Like that's exactly what we're going to have to do. But then if you end up with, say, Nathan Peterman in the draft, that's where you get back.
Absolutely blows up. I feel like Jared Goff is a decent quarterback that could be replaceable.
Well, it's like the Cowboys too with Dak. Like you're going to pay Zeke a stupid amount of money. He's going to expect more than Gurley and Bell. That's just how the way the NFL works. There's guys on the defensive ball that's good to side of the ball that's going to expect to get paid. Dak's going to be like, I think I'm a franchise quarterback. I want that $40 million deal. You can't. You can't do all of it. And that might be another game you move on from. Because how can you afford all these luxury players is really what it boils down to. Football team, you got to build the meat and potatoes.
Okay. Training Solution says, oh, never mind. Michael Grant says, actually, I think Antonio Brown is the reason Ben Roethlisberger looks decent. Interesting.
Well, the thing is, he's the number 3 receiver on the team right now in terms of yards. Jesse James and Juju sure look good when Ben's getting him the ball too. Those guys. So that's another thing to look at.
Part of that is the reason why Antonio Brown's angry.
He's still one of the most targeted wide receivers in the league, though. Like he had 9 receptions week 1.
And it's
8
not like
last
he's
week.
playing
That's
some
7.
stellar secondaries out there.
No. Has he been getting open sometimes? Yes. Has he run a lot of the there's been a lot of miscommunication between the two of them as well. One of the deep interception in the Browns game, Antonio Brown ran a seam and bend through more of like a deep corner rather. There's miscommunication on that interception. They kind of like freaked out a little bit at each other. There's been a few times this year when they've kind of like not been on the same page. Well, the only time Browns seemed happy this year was after his touchdown against the Browns. So maybe that's what it boils down to. You just got to force him the ball in the red zone. The only way to keep this guy happy. Like the thing, he's one of the best players on your team. He's one of the most respected guys in the locker room. I don't have a problem with Antonio Brown. I want him to finish his career in Pittsburgh. I get excited to watch him play. I like watching teams double or triple cover him and then watch him make a crazy cut and get wide open and still make a 50-yard reception. He's that guy. He's incredibly talented. But still, he's not. I wouldn't really say that's the Steelers' biggest problem right now.
What else we got? Imagine if he went to Green Bay.
This wouldn't happen.
What else? Bell to the Pats.
Crazy, but wouldn't happen.
If Tomlin actually trade Antonio Brown, we could call it a Gruden.
It'd be incredibly stupid. Like, unless you're getting like DeAndre Hopkins and something else back.
Kevin Durkant says he could come to Miami. Michael Grant says Pittsburgh could be Juju Bees. What else?
FYI, just continuing on my how to build a team. The way I'd run it is just every 5 years, second and third round pick on a running back, and just let them walk after their contract expires.
Shout out to Daniel Hernandez, LT himself from my Madden League, says loyal to the game. Ultra says this team is a mess. Bell holds out. Brown saying trade me. Ben stating retirement several times. This team has the talent of a dynasty and will be a failure because of ego.
That's going to be one of how this team's remembered. That's what it boils down to. Because Bell leaves this offseason. Sure, you squeak in the playoffs. Could you get hot? Yes, but
I would like to ask a question. So we acknowledge that Tomlin's the problem. So what type of coach would you like to see in Pittsburgh?
The thing is, if you bring in like a Harbaugh from Michigan, that like not super realistic, but that he would be.
It might be realistic. He might get fired.
Oh, I see that, but the thing is, he'd be too sandpaper in that team. Like they would have to kind of blow up the roster a little bit. Like if it's not his way, you're out. That's kind of how he kind of ran the 49ers almost, especially at the end. There's talk. I see Steelers Twitter talking about Tony Dungy a lot. Like, is he going to come out of retirement? No, but that's.
What about Bill Cowher? What about would Bill Cowher? Would you
These guys are too old.
It's the same thing with John Gruden. If you haven't coached in like 10 years, it's going to take you a couple. Like the NFL is different. Like you're not playing a fullback anymore. Like your RPO as your announcer.
The best offenses in the league have a fullback. I'm just going to.
Yeah, it's true. I think the fullback is one of the more undervalued positions in football right now.
Interesting, but like
what I'm trying to say is do you need a big name? Like, do you get Bruce Arians out of the booth and out of retirement? Do you throw him in there?
Bruce Arians is a good coach.
I don't. It's a really tough question because you need the right person, and you cannot miss. Like I feel like you'd want someone who's strict, but like a genius X and O's guys. Like your Sean Paytons and your Kyle Shanahan's. What's a crazy move?
Was like when Denver fired Fox after like being great that one year, and then they hired Gary Kubiak of all people and won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and
like sometimes it's just like a change of a person.
No, I see that too.
Terrible coach.
It's the thing. I don't think they could hire anyone within except for maybe Mike Munchak. he's been their O-line coach. That's the only guy I feel like that
coach.
You think so?
Head coach wise, yeah. Some guys are just meant to be positional coaches.
No, I agree with that. Like I hope he stays on the team for a long time as an O-line coach. He's just worked really well with them. But who is really available? Who are the top OCs? There's not really too many guys.
They're all gone right now outside of McDaniels.
The thing is, I couldn't trust him.
And McDaniel's only going to New England. He's the next New England coach. So
that's I feel like there's a guaranteed. Like there's nothing.
Like who else is there?
There's the DC. He used to be on the Eagles. He used to be the Lions head coach. Yeah, that's the name.
Terrible coach.
Schwartz wouldn't be a bad hire for the Steelers. I think. I don't think so.
Be okay, I guess.
Dan Campbell. Do you remember he was the interim head coach for the Dolphins? Now on the Saints. That's another name I've seen. I don't know about that.
No, college, there's definitely no Shanahans or McVays out there.
That's what they need though. They need your X and O genius, who's the players are going to respect. Like McDaniel's talking about, like 2007 week 16 play 42, and he's like, oh yeah, there's a slant to Jamison Crowder, and it went 32 yards, and he got tackled in the right hash in between the 40 and 50. What? Like that's what they need. Like someone who's so a football nerd almost.
Yep.
Or you want like a general that's gonna just kind of tear everyone down. Who are those guys right now? There isn't any that's not already on a team.
Ultra says they have failed time and time again against the Pats, Jags, and Ravens in the playoffs. Less talented teams that have beat them in the playoffs. They need to shut up, put their ego away, and give 100%.
Except for one playoff loss, the Steelers have pretty much handled the Ravens in the playoffs. There's one time in the wild card.
One time, yeah. Training Solutions,
Jaguars, yeah.
And the Ravens that year almost beat the Patriots, who won the Super Bowl. So I mean, that's tough. Training Solution says Clement didn't get robbed. Any person would call that a catch. You can't say it's rigged. Why are you still talking about the Super Bowl? Stop talking about the Super Bowl. Talking about toxic. Somebody said Mendenhall randomly. Ultra says Mike Tomlin also has the blame. He is not a great situational football coach. He's an emotional coach. Terry Bradshaw, critical of the Tomlin rah-rah guy.
The thing is, Terry Bradshaw should also just shut up. That's not as smart. Being an alumni of the team and then bashing him, that's just more pressure from the outside, which like they don't need. Like you played your whole career with this team. Why would you try to make them have more drama? I don't get what Terry was trying to do.
Trying to find some good comments. A lot of WWE talk today for some reason. Interesting. All right.
Another thing the Steelers have struggled with greatly this year, their kicking game. Chris Boswell, they couldn't.
Everybody is for some reason.
It's really bad, but their punting
is terrible right now.
They tried out 3 punters today. I'm surprised Jordan Berry hasn't been released yet because he's been horrific this year. Preseason and the first 2 regular season games, everyone's like, what is happening? Punts are going like 35 yards. And then the coverage team are passing the punts, and then there's up men on the return team that the ball's just falling into their laps, and they only have the punter to beat. It is not good. It's one of the things you don't think about in football, but a punter changes the positioning of the field. So if yours sucks, your defense is backed up against a wall. That's a strange thing that can be one of the most effective parts of a team. When you have a guy that can boom a punt within another team's 20-yard line every single time, no matter where you're on the field, that's huge. And the Steelers do not have that. If they're punting inside their 20, the other team's probably going to get it around the 50, which is not okay, especially in today's NFL.
Tom says Bell is a system running back. He also suggests Pete Carmichael, the Saints offensive coordinator. The only thing I would be aware of that situation is that Sean Payton's the head coach, and he's like a top 3 greatest offensive coach of all time. So, I mean, that's tough. Where do you think Brown is going? Says Mike Mikkel.
He's not. He's going nowhere. The trade thing was just a shot at a guy that he knew that was a PR guy. He's not being traded. Period. I saw there's a Vegas line saying he's more likely to be traded. Put all your money on no, he's not going to be traded because you're going to get a huge return. He's not going anywhere.
Training Solution says you're describing Jim Schwartz, strict but smart. He is good defensively for sure. And they had a good defense in Detroit when he was there.
Then they got to bring in an OC. They got to bring in someone smart, someone young maybe. Like I don't care if they're
but
like
I also
McVay's
feel like
age.
Ben could just figure out the offense.
Maybe just make him the Jackie Moon. Just be like your offensive coordinator and quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger. He's played the game at QB for 15 years in the NFL. I think anyone who does that, you might as well hire him as an OC once they retire. They know a lot about the game and they're fresh out of it. They could tell you any coverage, any call, and build an offense that they've been in a few. So like a guy like a Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, I feel like Peyton Manning would be an unbelievable offensive coordinator. So like,
yeah, but he doesn't want to do that.
Of course not. Well, if you wanted to be head coach one day.
All right. Yeah. I think we're going to end it there. Is that cool? Any last comments, Kevil?
It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, it's early in the season to predict demises, so I think just maybe for Steeler fans, just calm down a little bit. But we'll see what happens. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I kind of agree with Mike about the North not being necessarily super strong, but I do caution. I think the Bengals are better than you think. I will say that. I think
the Ravens are better than you think, too.
People think. I do think that this is not going to be the cakewalk. And maybe this could be the best thing that could happen to the Steelers, that the Ravens and the Bengals are better. Because that's one of those things is competition creates unity.
And the thing is, the Steelers absolutely hate the Bengals. Whatever it's been the last few years, it's not even a rivalry. It's just we don't respect you and we hate you. Like I'd call a rivalry between the Ravens, like we respect you and we hate you. But against the Bengals, it's like we do not like you. And anytime they play them, they seem to come up and play a better team game. So maybe that's the matchup they need to actually get things together.
By the way, there's one other thing I did want to point out. The last time that the Pittsburgh Steelers allowed less than 20 points at home, November 16th against the Tennessee Titans.
Damn.
It's been over 7. It's almost been a full season of over 20 points at home. And there were times that there were quarterbacks afraid that they could even complete 6 passes in Pittsburgh. That's the other thing. The way that they have handled their home field, my goodness. Like, there were times, like, Patrick Mahomes walked in there. Like, there were times in the olden days that there were quarterbacks afraid that they were scared and not sure they could complete 6 passes, let alone 6 touchdown passes. I think the Steelers need to get back to that. Kick some ass.
I remember in 2008 when teams would come in and walk out of the game with like 130 total yards. Yeah. Total passing and rushing. That was 10 years ago. That was the last time the Steelers won a Super Bowl. So we'll see. I think legitimately this team might finish somewhere around 10-5-1, but that would also require them to get hot. They should be able to do that. They don't have a very tough schedule, but definitely a knockdown of where I kind of figured they would be. I'm scared when they go to Jacksonville. I feel like that could be an ugly game just because they struggled so much against them before. And the Jags at home look good especially against the Pats, who don't have the best pass in the league, but Bortles kind of sliced them up, which is kind of scary.
Jags are a good matchup for the Pats and the Steelers, seemingly. So we'll finish it with this comment from the man Bodo. Fire Tomlin. He's lost the locker room and retire Ben. All right. On that note, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hit the like button, subscribe for more Bottom Line View. Thanks, Mike and Kevil, for joining us for this long discussion on the Steelers and Antonio Brown. Again, hit the like button, subscribe. Peace out.